Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. The US President Donald Trump has cancelled a state visit to Denmark after the nation's Prime Minister said Greenland was not for sale to the US. The President was scheduled to visit on the 2nd of September at the invitation of Denmark's Queen. Then last week, Mr. Trump suggested the US was interested in buying Greenland, an autonomous Danish territory, because of its strategic importance to the US.
Greenland, I don't know, it got released somehow. It's just something we talked about. Denmark essentially owns it. We're very good allies with Denmark. We protect Denmark like we protect large portions of the world. So the concept came up, and I said certainly I'd be strategically it's interesting.
But the Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen described the suggestion as absurd and said she hoped Mr. Trump was not being serious. Earlier, she reacted to the cancellation with shock and sadness, saying she was looking forward to welcoming the president.
It is with regret and surprise that I received the news that President Trump has cancelled his state visit to Denmark on the 2nd and 3rd September. I had been looking forward to the visit. Our preparations were well underway. It was an opportunity, I think, to celebrate Denmark's close relationship to US.
China has threatened to impose sanctions on US firms involved with the sale of F-16 fighter planes to Taiwan if Washington goes ahead with the deal. Foreign Ministry spokesman Geng Shuang urged the US to stop the arms sales and end military contact with Taiwan. The US government has approved the possible $8 billion deal involving 66 aircraft, which is the biggest agreement of its type in decades. China regards Taiwan as part of its territory, which should be reunited with the mainland. It has regularly criticised US arms deals with Taiwan, including the current one, which has already been widely discussed. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the outgoing head of Sudan's military council, has been sworn in as head of the newly formed Sovereign Council. Burhan was dressed in military uniform at the swearing-in ceremony held at the presidential palace in Khartoum. The remaining 10 members of the Sovereign Council will be sworn in later. Prime Minister nominee Abdallah Hamdok is also expected to be sworn in later in the day. On Tuesday, Sudan completed the formation of the 11-member Sovereign Council that will run the country for 3 years in a transitional period until elections. Sri Lanka's newly appointed army chief has taken office and attended a Buddhist religious ceremony in Colombo amid widespread international criticism for his involvement in the Sri Lankan civil war. The appointment of General Shavendra Silva, a key military leader during the final phase of the island's 26-year-long war with dissident Tamil Tigers, drew criticism from the United States, United Nations and civil society groups. General Shavendra Silva is accused of human rights violations dating back to when he was Sri Lanka's army chief. Nearly 100 migrants who had been stranded on the open arms rescue ship off the coast of Lampedusa disembarked on the Italian island on Tuesday night, ending a prolonged standoff between the Spanish charity operating the boat and the government in Rome. Megan Ravel reports.
Jubilation and relief aboard the Spanish rescue ship Open Arms at the news as 100 migrants can finally disembark after being at sea for nearly 3 weeks. The ship docked at the Italian island of Lampedusa on Tuesday night after an Italian prosecutor ordered its seizure. It was the end of a prolonged standoff between the Spanish charity and Italian government. Open Arms had rescued migrants off the Libyan coast, but was unable to dock due to an Italian ban on private rescue ships, as Italy cracks down on new arrivals. The charity said many were distressed and some suicidal, driven to jumping overboard. Italian Interior Minister Matteo Salvini suggested the charity was exaggerating the situation and that the ships have become taxis for people smugglers. Italy has taken a tough line on migrant entry, saying it has borne the brunt of African migration to Europe. The standoff came amid a political firestorm in Italy, providing fuel for Salvini, who is trying to force early elections.
And finally, the Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg has completed roughly half of her journey across the Atlantic aboard a racing yacht bound for New York. A photograph shared on social media by the 16-year-old activist showed her standing on the bow of the yacht with the caption, "Very pleasant conditions." Tracking data showed the boat has covered some 1,839 nautical miles. Thunberg set sail from Plymouth on August the 14th to take part in a United Nations climate summit. And that's your international news around the world in 5.